Hello guys, today we're going to change the gear cruciform on this Vespa transmission. First of all, getting this out, it's a good thing to check your splines here, that they are in a good condition. Sometimes your rear brake drum comes loose and destroys these splines, but this seems okay. The cruciform is out, and this is really bad. It's extremely worn actually. We can compare this old cruciform with a brand new one, and you'll see this is really worn. So I went for a new BGM cruciform, and this is harder steel in the edges here, so this should last longer than the original one. And this BGM cruciform has the part number BGM6500L. Here's a little tip for you. The Vespa PX engine can have two different cruciforms. We have this one, as you can see, that's slightly bent, so to speak, and this one that's straight. This one is for the older engines, and this one is in all the EFL engines. You don't want to mix this up and put this in the wrong engine, because if you put this one into an EFL engine, you will have some problems with like getting your neutral to stay in neutral. It will like to pop over to the first gear, so you never mix these up. And if you have an old say P200 with this and you have this gear shifter rod, there should always be a washer between this and the rod. On the EFL engines there is no washer in between these. And another thing that's good to do is always tighten these with Loctite, because these sometimes comes loose, the cruciform comes loose from the rod, and that damages the threads, and that's what's happening in my engine here. The threads on this old one are damaged. So if you ever are to have the selector box off from your engine, check so this hasn't come loose from the cruciform. So use Loctite. When you have this apart, it's also a good thing to check your cogs here. Be sure to make this that you put these back in the right order and you don't turn them upside down and so on. This is the way they came out. I'm going to show you here. It's rare that these tooths get worn. You don't have to worry about that. What you want to check is in here, if you have some wear on the in these holes. Checking, you know, just like on the cruciform, if it's been worn. This looks good. Just continue with the next one and so on. Now we can take a new cruciform and put it in place. Just put it in and fold it like that. And that's in place. And we go back with this one and we use some Loctite on this so it won't come loose. Oops, too much. Make it nice and tight. Now I can just put my gear cogs back in place the way they were, and then we're good to go. The circlip is back on and everything is good to go. And if you were to get these the wrong way, you would see that the cogs would get together at some point. You can see that the top one has a flat side here, and that's obviously because you're going to have your distance and circlip here, and the same goes for the one in the bottom. Got a flat surface that goes down to the circlip. So the top one and the bottom one, you really can get them wrong, but these two in the middle for second and third gear you can get wrong, but then you will end up with no play in between the other cogs, so you'll see if it's wrong. This is the right way. So now it's just to put this back in the engine. And now we want this to get in place again, and this is just to stick in, and then you have to make sure it lines up with the other cogs here on the input shaft. And if you don't get it all the way in, you can pull it from this side, which I'm going to do now. I'm putting some washers here, and then I have my nut. And now I can pull this in, I think. So as I said, make sure that you line these cogs up so you don't damage anything while putting this in. Every time you have your transmission apart, you should always check the gap here between the circlip and your distance ring here. This is a shimmer distance ring. This is the original one, it's 1 millimeter, but over time this will wear and you will get a bigger play. And this play should not be, it should be between 0.15 to 0.40 millimeters when you measure this. You have to measure this with 2 field gauges, one on each side here. So if you, in my case, I was very close to 0.4, so I decided to go up to a 1.2 millimeter distance ring here. I bought a BGM one, and the part number is BGM 6020S12, so that I have less play than I had before. This is a very small cost to do and a good thing to do while you have this apart. The transmission is back in place, so I figure I will put my brake drum in. I think we have some O-rings that we need to change. These ones should be one here. Yeah, and I'm putting the brake in here, the brake lever that connects to the brake shoes. There are O-rings on that one also that you need to change. I bought a new brake drum here because the old one here is obviously about 30 years old and worn out. You can see that there is a edge here, so I'd rather put in a new one when rebuilding the engine. So now it's on with this one, and then we're going to go to other casing and put the kickstart lever back in, and then we're soon good to go to put the casings back together. We're putting some new kickstart rubbers in place. These usually get really worn, but I must say these were in good condition. Now I'm going to put the kickstart lever back in place, but first of all, in here you have a O-ring that you need to change. Oop. So change this before you put the kickstart lever back in. Now we're going to see if we can get these engine casings back together. Make sure that your gasket stays in place. Now I'm going to take all my bolts and put them in. And I got new washers and new nuts somewhere here. The engine casings are back together again, and now it's time to put the gear selector box in place again. Just get this on here and then make sure your arm attaches into this. Now that the selector box is in place, I think I'm going to put the starter back on, starter motor, and CDI unit and so on. Some small things.